Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a structured deep dive into one of the most hotly debated topics in global finance right now, the BRICS currency proposal. We constantly hear these sensational, dramatic headlines about the end of the dollar, right? Well, today, we're cutting straight through that noise. We're going to look strictly at the financial mechanics, the structural plumbing, and what a proposed BRICS currency actually means for the global economy.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, hype versus financial reality. Second, the 5 currency layers. Third, who anchors the basket. Fourth, the missing safe asset. Fifth, assessing the feasibility matrix. And finally, signs to watch next.
Section 1. Hype versus financial reality. Breaking down the headlines.
If you follow financial news at all, you've definitely seen the dramatic predictions. Everyone is asking, will BRICS replace the dollar? But honestly, framing the debate this way is just far too loose. It completely skips over dozens of foundational steps. The real, much more useful question we should be asking is whether these 5 nations can successfully build a functioning currency basket in the first place, and what that basket can actually do in the real world.
To really understand this, we have to look at the fundamental difference between a spreadsheet and a balance sheet. See, an index is basically just an accounting formula. You can absolutely say, okay, one BRICS unit equals a fixed mix of 5 currencies, publish that formula daily, and even use it to price oil. But an index is not money. Actual functional money requires a balance sheet. It requires someone to redeem it, a massive institutional architecture, and above all, deep, unshakable trust during a panic.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2, the 5 currency layers, the ladder of money.
To truly grasp if a BRICS currency is feasible, we need to look at money as a ladder made up of distinct layers. We're going to analyze a very specific design path known as R5. Now, this name comes directly from the original 5 BRICS currencies: the Brazilian real, the Russian ruble, the Indian rupee, the Chinese renminbi, and the South African rand.
Think of these as the 5 steps a currency absolutely must climb. Let's walk up this ladder together. Layer 1 is a unit of account. This is highly feasible because it's really just a daily valuation formula. Layer 2 is an invoice index, which is where you price trade contracts in the BRICS unit, but you actually still physically pay the bill using euros or yuan. Layer 3 is a settlement token, meaning the basket can actually be transferred back and forth between approved central banks. Layer 4 is where it gets incredibly difficult, becoming a reserve asset. This is where central banks actually hold the unit in their vaults, which requires deep secondary markets so it's easy to buy and sell on a whim. And finally, Layer 5 is a true common currency, kind of like the euro, which requires a shared central bank. Look, for BRICS, Layer 5 is an absolute pipe dream right now. But Layers 1 through 3, those are real practical discussions happening today.
Section 3. Who anchors the basket? The core design dilemma.
Let's assume they can actually build this basket. We immediately hit a massive practical roadblock. Who anchors it? Notice the lopsided economic reality of these nations. China brings massive manufacturing scale, making the renminbi the natural core of the whole thing. But then you have India, which brings immense economic growth, but strictly limits how money flows in and out through capital controls. The rial and the rand can be quite volatile, and the ruble is currently heavily constrained by global sanctions. This vast asymmetry creates, as you might imagine, massive political friction within the BRICS alliance itself. We have to impartially detail the structural failure modes of the different ways they could anchor this. If they just use equal weights, say 20% for everyone, it wildly distorts reality because South Africa's economy is literally nowhere near the size of China's. Now, if they use GDP weights, it creates overwhelming Chinese dominance, making it look basically like a renminbi block. Some folks suggest commodity backing, like gold, but that creates severe physical redemption nightmares. Imagine shipping gold around to settle trade daily. And finally, relying heavily on the ruble introduces the very real risk of sanctions contaminating the entire system. Section 4, the missing safe asset, the treasury system.
This brings us to the absolute hardest part of currency creation, and a point that almost never makes it into the mainstream headlines. The dollar system is not just a dollar system, it is a treasury system. This is an incredibly profound distinction. You see, the world doesn't hold US dollars simply because global invoices are printed in them. Central banks hold dollars because of the massive, highly liquid bond market sitting right behind it. They need safe income-bearing instruments that they can buy, sell, or pledge instantly during a market panic.
For a BRICS basket to become a true reserve asset, it has to develop its own R5 yield curve. We are talking about short-term bills, long-term bonds, transparent public auctions, and repo eligibility, meaning you can easily use it as collateral for short-term loans. But right now, if a central bank actually wants to hold R5, what do they hold? A deposit at a development bank? BRICS currently just lacks a unified lender of last resort, and it lacks the deep, safe collateral market required to give reserve managers a place to safely park trillions of dollars.
Section 5. Assessing the feasibility matrix. What BRICS can actually do.
And this brilliantly illustrates where things actually stand when we bring all these mechanics together. Let's objectively grade the R5 proposal. Setting it up as an accounting unit or commodity reference price, the feasibility is high, because again, it's just a mathematical formula, not actual money. Setting up central bank clearing balances, I'd say medium feasibility, mostly because it requires really strict legal governance. But becoming a true reserve asset, that feasibility is low because of that missing safe asset market we just broke down. And full dollar replacement, very low. The global network effects of the dollar remain completely enormous. Feasibility literally plummets the moment we move from simple measurement to actual money.
Section 6. Signs to watch next. Operational milestones. So, now that we understand the plumbing, what should you actually be looking for in global financial news? Here is the sequential timeline required for the basket to become real. First, watch for a formal index methodology published by BRICS finance ministers. That could happen in days. Next, look for official institutions using it for internal accounting. Third, central banks establishing actual clearing balances, which takes years. But the ultimate market signal? The issuance of real R5-denominated bonds by a dedicated BRICS institution. That requires immense time, pristine credit quality, and total legal clarity, which usually take decades to build.
So the crucial point is this. A 5-currency basket can easily exist today as a neat accounting device, but to become a true financial asset, it needs a balance sheet. And a balance sheet absolutely cannot function without deep institutional trust, convertibility, and liquid, safe collateral.
We'll end our explainer today with this thought. The original 5 currencies can technically be combined, but as we watch this space evolve, ask yourself, can a currency basket build the immense financial architecture required to escape being just a spreadsheet? Keep a close eye on those operational milestones. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.